Did you get a task to do a literature review? And now you should find resource sources for it. In this video, we will talk about literature review. We try to answer questions, what literature review really is, and why we need to find scientific resource sources for it. This video walks you through the different types of literature reviews, what kind of sources you should use in your own literature review, and what are the stages when you are doing a literature review, and how to describe searches and evaluate found sources. This is a general overview of the literature review and the sources used in it. So always pay attention, for example, the instructions of the tasks at hand and your field of study. The literature review can be in the form of a scientific article, a part of research, a theoretical framework of a thesis, or a methodological solution of the whole thesis. The literature review brings together individual studies, which are then formed a whole. The purpose of the literary review is to describe and review what has been studied and is known about the topic and research problem before, as well as what kind of scientific literature has been written about it. For your own review, you should therefore look for a variety of scientific materials that usually describes individual studies. The type of literature review and your own field of study affect what kind of materials it is good to use in the review. In your thesis, a literature review can map out the previous research of your own topic. The theoretical part of the thesis also defines, for example, the key concepts of the thesis. The theoretical framework of the thesis is based on systematic information retrieval. Literature reviews can be classified in several ways. Three main types are narrative literature review, systematic literature review, and quantitative meta-analysis and qualitative metasynthesis. In addition to this, narrative literature review can still be classified into different subcategories according to the purpose of the review and what it is intended to study. A narrative literature review is often used in the theses and assignments of the University of Applied Science. Although there are several types of literature reviews, they still have the certain same parts and stages of making. Everything starts with a search for research and scientific information. After this, the found material is critically evaluated and suitable sources are selected for your own review. Based on the selected material, you perform a synthesis and analyze, so you are writing your actual review. The literature review consists of an analysis of previous research, so that is why you have to search for research information and sources. In this case, research information usually means articles in scientific journals or articles on a symposium of scientific articles. When you are evaluating the articles from these sources, try to choose only peer-reviewed articles to your own literature review. You can also use scientific monographs, research publications published by universities, research institutes, and public administrations, and various theses. However, please note in your own thesis that it is always good to refer to higher level of your own thesis in the research and in the theoretical part of the thesis, and usually the primary source of the thesis are licentiate theses and dissertations. Depending on your field of study, it may be possible to use other levels of the thesis elsewhere in the thesis. For example, to describe what kind of research on the topic is already available overall. Please, again, remember the instructions for the tasks and your own field of study. Materials are selected for the literature review based on discipline in the question. The basic principle could be that use materials that describe single study, that is, the best sources are scientific articles from either a scientific journal or a symposium of articles. However, your own field of study will influence which materials are the most appropriate and which sources are recommended. In some cases, you can also use systematic reviews. So also get to know the practices of your own field of study. For example, by reading literature reviews in the field. Let's now look How to describe the search for your literature review. The description of the information search describes the used databases and the keywords you are using in the searches. First, you have to transform your key concepts into keywords by choosing only the most distinctive terms. So you need to find the most relevant keywords about your topic. You can get help for choosing words from different thesaurus systems. Next, you have to describe and justify the databases you are using. So you have to tell which databases you are using and why these databases are relevant to your topic. It is recommended to use databases you find via Kaakkuri, for example, ScienceDirect, Sinar, and other EBSCO databases, Emerald Premier or Saga Premier. After you have described your searches, you have to also tell the reader what inclusion and exclusion criteria you use. With inclusion criteria, you can define the fundamental factors of the review, and the exclusion criteria will help you to identify what search objectives are appropriate. Use the consistent criteria for inclusion or exclusion of sources. Inclusion and exclusion criteria can be, for example, research is published in the peer-reviewed journal, the target population of the research, or the publication time. Finally, it is important to evaluate all the selected articles or other scientific publications. You can follow the according: the key results of the research, the limitation of the research, the suitability of the method used to the test initial hypothesis, the quality of the results obtained, the interpretation of the results, and the impact of the conclusion in the field. This video only describes some steps making a literature review, so look more information, for example, on the analysis and evaluation of the studies from various guides of research methods. You can find more help from the library online guide, and always remember to check instructions in your own field of study before start a literature review, either as a thesis or other assignment. I hope this video helped you with your literature review.